Tonight, a region on the brink as Israel fights Hamas in Gaza. New concerns over escalating tensions with Hezbollah in the north. And
organizations and volunteers have been providing or really stepping in to care for migrants when Border Patrol has failed.
What President Biden's new border policy means for ministries working with migrants at the southern border. Plus, keeping your heart healthy.
If you think about your plate as a pie chart, 60 to 70% of that should be fruits and vegetables.
How what you eat can lower the risk of heart disease. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The world waits to see if Hamas will accept a hostage deal. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Tara Mergener.
And from the studio of our Washington News Bureau, I'm John Jessup. Well, the fighting in the Middle East expands, leading to concerns over the possibility of a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah.
Amid new warnings from Israel about possible military escalations in the north. Early this morning, an attacker opened fire outside the U.S. Embassy near Beirut, Lebanon. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke joins us now with the latest on that attack and more. Caitlin, do we know anything about the motives of the gunman?
Tara, John, the suspect in that attack is in custody, but we still don't have any information on his identity or motive. There were no casualties. However, a Lebanese guard was seriously injured. Officials say the shooter was wearing an ISIS insignia, and the attack came shortly after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned this morning that his country is prepared for a very strong action in the north. Tara, John?
So, Caitlin, along those lines, there's the northern threat from Hezbollah. Meanwhile, no seeming end to the fighting in the war with Gaza against Hamas. Any word on that ceasefire deal that President Biden talked about last week?
According to U.S. officials, a deal is still on the table right now, and the ball is in Hamas's court. Top mediators from Egypt and Qatar met with senior Hamas officials today to talk about Israel's proposal, and the State Department has urged Hamas to accept the deal. Today, spokesperson Matthew Miller reiterating the terror group is all that stands in the way of a ceasefire.
It is not Israel that is the roadblock to a ceasefire right now. It is not Israel that is a roadblock to hostages being returned. 600 trucks a day of humanitarian assistance coming in. Palestinians being able to safely return to their neighborhoods and eventually get to the reconstruction of Gaza. It is Hamas. All that is on the table in a proposal that is sitting with Hamas, as it has been sitting with Hamas for 6 days now.
Even as negotiators work around the clock, there's growing concern over how many hostages are even still alive. John, Tara?
All right, Caitlin, on Tuesday, we did see a show of support for Israel from House Republicans. What do we know about the bill they passed sanctioning the ICC over the recent decision to target Israeli leaders?
Well, Congressman Chip Roy of Texas sponsored that bill, and it was backed by all House Republicans and even a few dozen Democrats. Roy says it sends a strong message that Israel's leaders can't be targeted for defending their people.
They are carrying out the war with, frankly, a historic effort to target Hamas without endangering civilians. Civilians are going to obviously, unfortunately, lose their lives in combat. But Israel was attacked. Israel's continuing to be attacked. People forget that, right? They're getting missiles lobbed into them by the thousands.
The sanctions bill is unlikely to get a vote in the Democrat-controlled Senate, but President Biden has also called the ICC's actions outrageous. John, Tara?
All right, Caitlin, thank you. Well, primary season is officially over, and it is no secret by now that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the presumptive nominees in the race for the White House. But the biggest excitement last night was in the Senate races. In New Jersey, Democrat Andy Kim won the Democratic nomination. It puts him on track to potentially face off against incumbent Bob Menendez, who is in the middle of a corruption trial and running as an independent, although it's not clear if Menendez will stay in the race if he is convicted. Meanwhile, one of the year's top Senate races will be in Montana. Democratic Senator John Tester will face off against GOP newcomer Tim Sheehy after they won their primaries last night. This contest could ultimately decide which party controls the Senate in November. All right. With that, let's bring in CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, welcome. Republicans have a real shot, apparently, at taking up the gavel in the Senate. So where do you see the most likely route, the race to unseat Tester in Montana, or maybe a pickup in West Virginia?
Well, Tara, there's lots of opportunities here. First of all, remember Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, he's not going to be running for re-election. Jim Gilmore, the Republican, is going to win there pretty handily. So that's going to go to the Republicans. So right there's one pickup in West Virginia. They could pick up in Montana, as you mentioned, with Tim Sheehy. That is a toss-up right now. And also in Ohio, Sherrod Brown in trouble. And then you just go down the list. Nevada is a problem, too. For the Democrats, that's 3. They could even lose in Pennsylvania and Arizona. Those are lean Democrats right now. Bottom line is Republicans could pick up anywhere from 3 to 5 Senate seats if all goes well.
And David, the chairman of the two powerful House committees, Oversight and the Ways and Means committees, issued criminal referrals today against 2 members of President Biden's family, Hunter Biden, his son, and his brother James Biden, recommending that the DOJ prosecute over claims of making false statements to Congress. David, is this in lieu of the impeachment inquiry that seemed to have petered out?
Well, for sure, in the sense that it's all politics. I mean, look, first of all, guys, this is going nowhere. I mean, the DOJ, Biden's DOJ is not going to take up any of this against Biden's own son and brother. So you can just forget about that. It's politics in an election year. This is what happened. This is what happens. Donald Trump and his folks believe they experienced that in a lower Manhattan courtroom, as we've talked about for quite a bit. And now it's happening on the other side of the aisle. But yeah, this is not going anywhere. Look, the bottom line is that Comer and others, the Republicans, believe that Hunter and James Biden gave false testimony. Well, it's testimony that's conflicted by some other folks. So bottom line, it's a he said situation in congressional testimony, not going anywhere.
David, there's been strong reaction to President Biden's executive order on both sides, with Democrats calling it disappointing and a step in the wrong direction. Republicans panned it as a political stunt. Am I wrong, or did Biden finally manage to unify Republicans and Democrats?
Yeah, way to go, the unifier in chief, for sure. Oh, look, I mean, this just in, it's politics. 5 months before a presidential election and Joe Biden decides to get serious on the border. Look, this is easy. This is called, in analysis land, a layup, a slam dunk. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that's what's going on here. And you say, well, why exactly? Well, look, he had 3 years plus to do something about it. Not only did Biden not do anything on the border, he did the exact opposite. He literally rescinded many of Donald Trump's policies. And once again, don't take my word for it. Just ask Alejandro Mayorkas, who's on tape recorded saying we're rescinding every single one of Donald Trump's policies. Joe Biden embraced it. Now he's doing the opposite 5 months before an election. I think 2 and 2 typically equals 4. In this case, it equals 4.
All right, David, never a dull moment. Thanks for joining us as always.
You bet, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Well, a day after announcing his executive order that we're just talking about on the border, President Biden is in France to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. He will meet with the veterans of the Normandy invasion this week and honor the more than 2,500 Americans who died that day to help end World War II.
He'll have the opportunity on Thursday to meet with veterans who participated in the D-Day landing, and also to join fellow leaders in celebrating that anniversary and giving a speech.
The visit comes at a perilous time for the European continent. Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine has reignited the worst fighting in Europe since 1945. As a show of support, Biden is expected to meet with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Normandy.
The world is commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the historic Allied invasion of Normandy during World War II.
CBN contributor and former U.S. Army Ranger Chuck Holton recently visited the site and has this story of the enduring legacy of those who fought for freedom.
On June 6, 1944, the course of world history changed as Allied forces launched a massive invasion on the beaches of Normandy. Among thousands of brave soldiers who risked everything that day was Tech Sergeant Charles Leonard Jones, whose story of courage and sacrifice is being brought to light by his great-nephew, Mark Tomlin.
My grandma remembers when he was right before he left for war. She was about 4 years old, and he would play catch with her and roll the ball back and forth. And she has a vivid memory of him smiling and laughing before he left. And that was the last time she ever saw him.
Tech Sergeant Jones survived the initial assault on D-Day only to be killed in action on July 4th. Tomlett is the first of his family to visit Jones' grave, making this a deeply personal journey to honor his great-uncle's sacrifice.
He made it almost a month after landing here on D-Day. His father found out what had happened one day when they came with the flags and he saw them outside. He just knew that his son was dead.
This June, another force will arrive on these shores, as more than 10,000 are expected to commemorate 80 years since the invasion. Many will visit Pointe du Hoc, a symbol of the spirit and sacrifices made to defend freedom.
If the invasion was going to be a success on June 6, 1944, the 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions had to take these cliffs here at Pointe du Hoc. It fell to them because they're the premier light infantry unit in the U.S. military. And they were going to have to fire ropes up these 150-foot cliffs, climb up hand over hand, under fire, and take these coastal defense batteries. And so the commander of the 29th Infantry Division, Brigadier General Cota, wanted to give the Rangers some encouragement before they embarked on their mission. So he came to the lead element of the 5th Ranger Battalion and said, "What unit is this?" And they said, "It's the Rangers, sir." And he said, "Well, then, Rangers, lead the way." That became the official motto for the 75th Ranger Regiment that's still used by the Army Rangers even to this day.
This year's commemoration also brings controversy, as France has invited Russian representatives to attend the event despite Vladimir Putin's ongoing aggression against Ukraine and the West.
To say that it's sobering to walk among the graves of these more than 9,000 Americans who gave their lives back in 1944 here at Normandy Beach is the height of understatement. But it makes me think not just of the lives and the futures that these people gave up, but the fact that they gave them not just to liberate America, but to bring the ideal of America to another continent. And it makes me wonder how many Americans today would be willing to make such a sacrifice again.
There's a level of responsibility you feel to carry on for what he died for.
As the number of living D-Day veterans dwindles, thousands gather to commemorate this pivotal moment in history and reflect on the challenges the world faces today. Stories of veterans like Tech Sergeant Jones serve as an important reminder of the high cost of freedom and the unwavering spirit of those who fought to defend it. From the hallowed grounds of Normandy, France, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Moving story. Thank you so much, Chuck. Still to come, President Biden takes action on the southern border. What it means for those ministering to migrants in need. That story more when Faith Nation continues.
Welcome back. It has been 1 day since the president's executive action effectively shutting down the asylum process for people who enter the U.S. illegally. And already the legal pushback is starting. The American Civil Liberties Union says it will challenge the order in court. Migrant advocates say the restrictions leave asylum seekers, though, with few options.
What this announcement is doing is actually effectively attacking asylum, making it almost impossible for people to access that remedy and really violating our human rights.
While critics say the order is inhuman, some Republicans say it does not go far enough. The executive action will remain in place until the number of daily border apprehensions dips below 1,500 for 2 weeks.
And Chelsea Sobolik is the Director of Government Relations at World Relief and joins us now. Chelsea, welcome to you. So the number of migrants coming over our border continues to soar to record highs. Chelsea, what kind of relief are you providing right now? And how do you see the mission not just connected, but central or core to the gospel of Jesus Christ? Chelsea, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
So let me repeat that one more time just in case. So we're talking about record high numbers crossing the border. Can you talk to us about the relief that you're providing and why you see your mission as core to the gospel of Jesus?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. So, World Relief's mission is to boldly engage the world's greatest crises in partnership with the local church. So, displacement around the world is one of the things that we've identified as being one of the greatest crises in our world. Displacement is at an all-time record high. There's over 110 million people who are forcibly displaced for a number of different reasons. The top of the list is conflict, and many people are fleeing dangerous and life-threatening situations. And so we are engaged both around the world. We've served in over 100 countries in our 80-year history. And then here domestically, we are one of the 10 refugee resettlement organizations that resettles refugees. And we are thoughtfully engaging the dynamics on the U.S.-Mexico border and migration by partnering with local churches in Tijuana and community centers. And there we provide shelter and meals, all in partnership with the local church. So we believe, because scripture tells us that every single person is made in God's image, regardless of where they were born or what they were fleeing. And so we really want to serve and to love people around the world at the U.S.-Mexico border and here in our country.
There are a lot of critics of the administration who say lack of immigration enforcement is putting those trying to enter the country illegally in peril, and that is the main reason migrants are coming over from all over the world now. Is this making your job more difficult, the numbers?
Yeah, so I think what's frustrating, not only for organizations like ours, but for the people that we serve, for people who are seeking asylum, is that administrations will kind of ping pong and change policies. It creates confusion, delays, and in some cases, in a lot of cases, puts people in very dangerous and life-threatening situations. And so what I think this really shows is that Congress must revive bipartisan work on comprehensive immigration reform. You know, we saw what I think is a very good faith effort earlier this year by Senators Lankford, Sinema, and Murphy that failed not once but twice to receive a vote in the U.S. Senate. It's been decades since Congress has passed major reform, and we actually have recent polling from Lifeway Research that found that 77% of evangelicals say it's important for Congress to pass significant immigration reform, not next year, not 10 years from now, this year. So it's really important to Christians to see Congress do its job and pass comprehensive laws that protect. We've long advocated for.
Chelsea, thank you so much for your time. Chelsea Sobolik with World Relief. We so appreciate the work that you're doing and sharing your perspective. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, coming up, the secret to a healthy heart. We will show you right after this. Heart disease is already America's #1 killer. The CDC reports someone dies from it every 34 seconds.
And that's right, Tara. And despite its prevalence, research shows many Americans lack the tools and information to fight back. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson explains.
Whether it's a heart attack, stroke, or plaque buildup, doctors say poor lifestyle choices largely contribute to heart disease, and adopting healthier habits can turn things around. But do Americans know how to do that? Although heart disease remains America's leading cause of death, the good news is the number of people dying from it has been steadily decreasing over the last 40 years. But that downward trend stopped about 5 years ago and has remained the same ever since. A Cleveland Clinic survey finds Americans harbor a number of misconceptions when it comes to heart health. For example, 10% believe a fast food diet is the most heart healthy, while 72% incorrectly think low-fat or low-carb diets are best, while only 15% know the healthiest is actually the Mediterranean diet.
It has the best data for actually reducing strokes and heart attacks. And there's large randomized clinical trials that show this.
Many don't know the Mediterranean diet consists mostly of fruits and vegetables, aka good carbs.
So if you think about your plate as a pie chart, 60 to 70% of that should be fruits and vegetables.
The Mediterranean diet also includes healthy fats like olive oil.
Extra virgin olive oil has an anti-inflammatory component called oleic acid. And we know that some cardiovascular risk is driven by overall or systemic inflammation within the body, so that can be helpful.
Beans, poultry, and fish are on the health menu, but not shellfish, red meat, pork, or processed foods.
Chips, crackers, pastries, lunch meats, those are the killers.
Losing excess weight can be good for the heart, although a whopping 71% of us don't know the best way to do that.
The majority of Americans thought that exercise was the biggest thing that we could do to lose weight, where we know that really isn't true. Now, exercise is important for overall cardiovascular health, but if you really want to get your weight down and become a healthy weight, the biggest thing that people need to do is modify their diet.
Too many Americans don't realize the importance of keeping their blood pressure and cholesterol in check.
Most people should be seeing their primary care doctor, and they should be checking that.
And more people need to know there are other heart attack symptoms beyond chest pain and pressure.
For women, I typically say also that nausea or any type of gastrointestinal symptoms that just are lingering and not going away, you should at least think about, maybe it's my heart.
So while there's a lot we can do to lower our risk of heart disease, the first step is getting the right information. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Finally tonight, it took a little while, Tara, but a successful liftoff for Boeing's Starliner spacecraft.
Persistence pays off. So after 2 failed attempts, it seems the third time's the charm. The Starliner's capsule blasting off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Its capsule transporting 2 astronauts to space for the very first time. An important milestone in Boeing's attempt to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX. The pair of astronauts will test Starliner systems on the way to the International Space Station, and they'll spend 8 days in space before returning to Earth. Now, that's a trip.
Definitely a trip. And Tara, I want to ask, I know I'm never interested in going to space, but would you report from space?
No.
Not a chance.
Maybe not, no.
We'll keep it right here then. Thanks so much for watching.
See ya.
Yeah.